All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Kirk's Law Corner, Monday Night Law here. July 6th, 2026. Our 250th anniversary. I hope everybody had a fun, safe Independence Day. Everybody calls it 4th of July. Yeah, it is the 4th of July, but it's actually the Independence Day, the day that John Hancock signed off on the Declaration of Independence, laying down the law, because that's what declarations do. They lay down the law. We declare. Well, I declare. All right. So now that we all know that, we're actually going to go over the Declaration of Independence. But before we look into that one, we need to back up a year, almost to the day, July 6th, 1775. The other declaration. A lot of people, most people, not even aware of this particular declaration. Now, those of you that have followed me long enough and have seen me talk about this particular declaration, this may sound familiar to you. But I think it's appropriate that we go over this particular declaration because this is the declaration before the Declaration of Independence. And again, if we read the Declaration of Independence, it's declaring the causes for the separation. It's the Lee's Resolution that separated us from Great Britain, not the Declaration of Independence. Oh, but they don't want to tell us that. Well, for those who would like the truth about that, can watch my free educational series on YouTube in the playlist. Just go to my YouTube channel there, Kirk's Law Corner, and check that out. And go to the playlist and see the educational series and watch episode 1. I covered those documents. Hey Troy, good to see you. Hi Michelle, good to see you. It's going to be a good one tonight. And if we have time, I've got some other stuff on Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England and the specifically maritime jurisdiction or admiralty, which Article 3, Section 2 delegates to the federal government. So, quick shout out to those over here on Telegram. Of course, Diesel D's, good to see you, brother. Wendy, Prayer Warrior, JPC5, Pink Gun Spooty, Laura Scott, and Kathy Watson. Good to see you, dear. Amundsen58 out here on Rumble. Only one that's made a comment so far. And thank you, Wendy, for running around checking. Everything seems to be working okay. Shout out to those over there on YouTube. Thanks for being here tonight. Should be a good one. Right on. Let's see. David Dickerson. David, yeah. 5385 there. I don't know, weird stuff going on there. Uh-oh. Anyways, thanks for watching and tuning in on Tuesday mornings while at work. Yes, please do hit the like, follow, share buttons there. Quantum Kid, good to see you. And Brad, I don't see you on yet. May have not found it yet, but we'll see. Let's see. Dreaming Deer over here on Telegram. Take Back New Jersey 1. Good to see you. Oh crap, yep. Rumble's not working. Shows I'm live, but no video. Oh, there, I refreshed, now it's showing live. Well, try again, because it's showing good here now. I did see like the screen flicker and do something weird there, so I wonder what actually happened there, but Rockin' R. Layton. Is that you, Brad? Yep, and the Telegram I changed my Telegram stuff. I made it a private channel, so that link is no longer good. It is pretty much nullified any of the scammers. I have found that some are still trying to impersonate Kirk's Law Corner over on Telegram, but you couldn't get Rumble to work, huh, Karen? Dang it. It's shown that it's working for me now. It wasn't at first. I may have to renew the static IP, because I've been using the static IP. And I upgraded my software, so that's not it. Or updated, I should say, updating the broadcast software, which is what I thought maybe the issue was. And no new updates to that, so it's probably a Rumble thing. I might actually go back to just doing a regular every time, having to put in the key stuff and all that, broadcasting key there. Okay, so now it's working for you, Wendy. Anna Munson 58, it's working for them. So yeah, next week I'll make sure that I do it that way. I'll just not use the static IP and do it the old-fashioned way. Every single time I load my broadcasting software, I have to manually go in and put in the stream key instead of using the static IP. This is something new within the last 3 weeks. I've been having an issue with Rumble, so alright, so without further ado here, let's jump right into this, because got a little bit to cover here, and I would like to try to get on to the Blackstones. So we'll see how this goes. So this is actually called the Declaration for the Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms. And I'm on the avalon.law.yale.edu website, 18th century. And they call it a declaration by the representatives of the United Colonies of North America, now met in Congress at Philadelphia, setting forth the cause and necessity of their taking up arms. One thing I want to point out here is Philadelphia, at this particular point in time, we know it as Pennsylvania, but back then that was still Virginia. Just for clarification. Good to see you, James. Out there on YouTube. All right. This is going to shed some light on why they took up arms. Now, this is almost to the day a year prior to the Declaration of Independence. If it was possible for men who exercised their reason to believe that the divine author, that's a capital A, so we're talking about God, of our existence, intended a part of the human race to hold an absolute property in, and an unbounded power over others, marked out by his infinite goodness and wisdom as the objects of a legal domination, never rightfully resistible, however severe and oppressive, the inhabitants of these colonies might at least require from the Parliament of Great Britain some evidence that this dreadful authority over them has been granted to that body. But a reverence for our Creator, principles of humanity, and the dictates of common sense must convince all those who reflect upon the subject that government was instituted to promote the welfare of mankind and ought to be administered for the attainment of that end. Not to be misconstrued as they get to tell us what's in our best interest. That's not what promote the welfare of mankind. That is to protect our rights. Common sense here. The legislature of Great Britain, however, stimulated by an inordinate passion for a power not only unjustifiable, but which they know to be peculiarly reprobated by the very constitution of that kingdom, and desperate of success in any mode of contest, where regard should be had to truth, law, or right, have at length, deserting those, attempted to effect their cruel, impolitic purpose of enslaving these colonies by violence. Oh, you mean like domestic violence? Article 4, Section 4. As we read through this, a lot of this is going to make a lot more sense in the Declaration of Independence, as well as the Constitution itself. It's going to be very enlightening tonight, folks. Good to see you, Slim Frank. And have thereby rendered it necessary for us to close with their last appeal from reason to arms. So as you can see already, they're talking about, hey, we've tried to talk with them. We've tried to work these things out. And that was their last appeal. They had no choice but to take up arms. This is the whole purpose behind the Second Amendment, is so that we can defend ourselves from a despotic government. Not for hunting. Why do you need more than 10 rounds? Because there's an awful lot of corrupt government that might need to be taken down, and we might be able to defend ourselves effectively. Now, again, I do not advocate for violence. There is a process that is due prior to taking up arms, which we will read here. Yet, however blinded that assembly may be by their intemperate rage for unlimited domination, so to cite justice and the opinion of mankind, we esteem ourselves bound by obligations of respect to the rest of the world to make known the justice of our cause. Our forefathers, inhabitants of the island of Great Britain, pay attention here, folks, left their native land to seek on these shores, a residence for civil and religious freedom. at the expense of their blood and the hazard of their fortunes, without the least charge to the country from which they removed, by unceasing labor and an unconquerable spirit, they effected settlements in the distant and unhospitable wilds of America, then filled with numerous and warlike barbarians, societies or governments. So when we say society, that means government. Vested with perfect legislatures, were formed under charters from the crown. Oh, would that be like the first charter of Virginia, the second charter of Virginia, the third charter of Virginia, the Ordinance of Virginia, 1621, where it created the General Assembly? And an harmonious intercourse was established between the colonies and the kingdom from which they derived their origin. The mutual benefits of this union became in short time so extraordinary as to excite astonishment. It is universally confessed that the amazing increase of the wealth, strength, and navigation of the realm arose from this source. Now, many people don't know that those, like the first charters, the three charters of Virginia, it lists out a certain amount of gold, silver, and other elements dug up out of the land. A certain percentage of that was supposed to be sent to Great Britain. Taxation. That's how things were done back then. Imagine that. So, and the minister who so wisely and successfully directed the measures of Great Britain in the late war publicly declared that these colonies enabled her to triumph over her enemies. So it was because of these colonies and everything that was done in the agreements. Now, remember, Great Britain's a tiny little chunk of land. So they had to rely on the colonies and the people over here. Towards the conclusion of that war, it pleased our sovereign to make a change in his councils. From that fatal moment or movement, the affairs of the British Empire began to fall into confusion, and gradually sliding from the summit of glorious prosperity to which they had been advanced by the virtues, morals, principles, and abilities of one man, are at length distracted by the convulsions that now shake it to the deepest foundations. The new ministry, finding the brave foes of Britain, though frequently defeated, yet still contending, took up the unfortunate idea of granting them a hasty peace, and then subduing her faithful friends. Now, prior to this, there was a taking up of arms again, and there was a cessation of arms done. Said, okay, yeah, da 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 da, and what did they do? When they laid down arms and went to go, said that they were going to move, leave, and da 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 da, they literally shot them in the back. They shot and killed them in the back. Liars, traitors, deceivers of men. Because we outnumbered them then. And every time we took up arms against them then prior to this, we kicked their butt. We by far outnumbered them. These devoted colonies were judged to be in such a state of being, as to present victories without bloodshed. Oh. And all the easy emoluments of statutable plunder. the uninterrupted tenure of their peaceable and respectful behavior from the beginning of colonization, their dutiful, zealous, and useful services during the war, though so recently and amply acknowledged in the most honorable manner by His Majesty, by the late King, and by Parliament, could not save them from the meditated innovations. I wonder who this new council was. Would that be the Jesuits? Yeah, buddy. History has repeated itself over and over and over again. It's the same people, folks. Told you this is going to be very enlightening. Parliament was influenced to adopt the pernicious project, and assuming a new power over them, have in the course of 11 years given such decisive specimens of the spirit and consequences attending this power, as to leave no doubt concerning the effects of acquiescence under it. So for 11 years they endured this new power over them. What? They have undertaken to give and grant our money without our consent. That sure sounds like the international banking cartel that we're dealing with right now. Oh yes, that most certainly is being dealt with, or has been dealt with. So many people have lost faith in Trump and the military, in the trust the plan thing. Make no mistake, it's happened. It's unfolding as we speak. And it's going to be exponential at this particular point on. Okay? Though we have ever exercised an exclusive right to dispose of our own property. Oh, wait a minute. You mean like requiring us to title our private property? What they call motor vehicles now? And then even recreational vehicles. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. They're wanting us to title it. Whether it's a dirt bike, a UTV, ATV, we're not even using it on the streets and highways, but yet we still have to title it. Register it. Got to have a off-highway sticker or a plate. License plate. We have to have a license. Hey, Brother Art, good to see you. Doug, good to see you, Doug. Glad you made it. But again, here, this is the start. First it was about the money. Then it was about their property. Statutes have been passed for extending the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty and vice admiralty beyond their ancient limits. Now, what is this admiralty jurisdiction? You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and jump over there real quick to Blackstone's. Now this is in book 3, chapter 5, page 69, gets into the admiralty, which is actually maritime courts, or such as have power and jurisdiction to determine all maritime injuries arising upon the seas, or in parts out of the reach of the common law, are only the court of admiralty and its courts of appeal. So when we look at the Constitution, Article 3, Section 2. But we'll just start with Article 3. Now, I used to misquote this just like so many other people, that it doesn't say all judicial power. It says the judicial power of the United States. It doesn't say all judicial power. There's a big difference. So, the judicial power is listed in Section 2. But it says, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Now, here's the thing. So many people seem to think that they can make any inferior court. No, they cannot. What that is saying is, like when new states are admitted to the Union, they may need to create an inferior court, like a district court, a federal district court, or a circuit court. That's what that's referring to. They do not get to change the jurisdiction of the courts, because the jurisdiction is laid out. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law, not at law and equity, arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority. That is what in law means. Not to be confused with at law. There is a difference between suits at common law and suits in law. A lot of people miss that. In suits at common law, that's common law jurisdiction. These are suits in law and in equity arising under this Constitution. The common law is before the Constitution. That's the law before the Constitution, the fundamental law. All right. To all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. To all cases of what? Admiralty and maritime jurisdiction. It's not suits at common law. Uh-oh. Where does it say common law jurisdiction? It does not. Words have meanings, and those words are not here. So now we're talking about admiralty and maritime jurisdiction like it's two different things, when in reality, it's one and the same. Which maritime is out on the sea, or in parts out of the reach of the common law. See? Are only the Court of Admiralty and its courts of appeal. The Court of Admiralty is held before the Lord High Admiral of England. That sounds like military. Or his deputy, who is called the judge of the court, according to Sir Henry Spielman and Lambarde. It was first of all erected by King Edward III. Its proceedings are according to the method of the civil law. Civil law is Roman civil law. Code. Like those of ecclesiastical courts, upon which account it is usually held at the same place with the superior ecclesiastical courts any more than the spiritual courts. From the sentences of admiralty judge, an appeal always lay in ordinary course to the king in chancery, as may be collected from Statute 25 Henry VIII in the 19th century, which directs the appeal from the archbishop's courts to the determined by the persons named in the king's commission. Appeals from the vice admiralty courts in America and our other plantations and settlements may be brought before the courts of admiralty in England as being a branch of the admiral's jurisdiction. That's military. Admiral, that's Navy. Though they may also be brought before the king in council. But in case of prize vessels taken in time of war in any part of the world and condemned in any courts of admiralty or vice admiralty as lawful prize, the appeal lies to certain commissioners of appeals constituted chiefly of the Privy Council and not to judges' delegates. And this by virtue of divers treaties with foreign nations, by which particular courts are established in all the maritime countries. Now, maritime, that's commerce. Hi, Jax. Good to see you. Finally, you made it. Anybody see Mark? I haven't seen Mark's comment. I missed it if he did. Okay. Now, here's another one, right? Whether lawful prize or not. For this being a question between subjects of different states, it belongs entirely to the law of nations and not to the municipal laws of either country to determine it. See how the law of nations is right here in Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England? Yeah, that's right. The law of nations. It's the law of nations. It most certainly is a body of law. The original court to which this question is permitted in England is the Court of Admiralty. But that's maritime. So either commerce or military. Because we're talking at war, in time of war. Now, back to Article 3, Section 2. Think about this for a minute. What jurisdiction is here again? Admiralty and Maritime? Who is bound by this Constitution and who is what? This is where we have to comprehend our Republican form of government here. The people is essentially composed of the body of the militia. Right? Isn't that what it says? Oops, wrong century. Where is it? I thought it was it here. I keep missing this. know it's here. Huh. Let me find this. Okay, so it's not. I guess it's just right here. The said states hereby certainly enter into a firm league of friendship with each other for their common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare, binding themselves to assist each other against all force offered to it or attacks made upon them or any of them on account of religion, sovereignty, trade, or any other pretense whatever. But I thought so maybe I guess it is the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12th, 1776 is the one I'm actually looking for. Yep, here we go. Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776. Oh, wait, that's right before the Declaration. Yeah, it's because it goes together. Hi, Mark. Good to see you out there on Rumble. I guess Rumble's not working too good for some people tonight, so a lot of them, Karen and them, they're over here on YouTube. Karen, Jax, Doug. But right here. Article 13 of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776, that a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. Now, wait a minute. Let's read that Second Amendment again. Where did they get that verbiage again? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That a well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained to arms, is a proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. That standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination to and be governed by the civil power. Uh-oh. Yeah, we're not supposed to have standing armies. No armed bodies of men. We're supposed to have a well-regulated militia. Which means the police is an unlawful standing army. That is an armed body of men. It is not a well-regulated militia. That is unlawful and unconstitutional. Per the Second Amendment. We're supposed to have a well-regulated militia. The well-regulated militia is, in fact, the military. That's what I mean by trained to arms. But the second part of the Second Amendment is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, because the military is supposed to be subordinate to the people. Oh, that's what that means. Yeah. In other words, where's the legislative authority over the well-regulated militia, the military, under admiralty jurisdiction? Wouldn't that be pursuant to the Constitution, right? That would be arising under this Constitution and the laws of the United States. Under their authority. The people are not under their authority. They are subordinate to the people. The people are the sovereign, not government. All right, back to this declaration for the causes and necessity of taking up arms, July 6, 1775. This is what's going on here. Again, right? Statute has been passed for extending the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty and vice admiralty beyond their ancient limits. For depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury, not jury trial. What is the process of a trial by jury? Oh, that's a grand jury indictment first. Right? Grand jury indictment. Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, admiralty jurisdiction, or in the militia, admiralty jurisdiction, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, admiralty jurisdiction. That's the exception. Otherwise, you have to have a grand jury presentment or indictment of a grand jury. That's what a real trial by jury means. Grand jury, then a petite jury. And this all has to be done pursuant to the law of the land. This is the law of the land, the supreme law of the land. 10th Amendment, Bill of Rights. Which when we read the Bill of Rights, these are articles in addition to an amendment to the Constitution. This is actually Article the 5th, not the 5th Amendment. But with the Reconstruction Acts of 1871 and the Corporation, they had to put the real Constitution and the Bill of Rights to the side. This is all trickery. This is when this changed. So, this is not the real Bill of Rights. And which is why they try to say, well, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to the states except for by and through the 14th Amendment. Hogwash. This is the common law. All of this stuff came before the Bill of Rights. Must have a grand jury indictment. Right here. Now, again, Avalon leaves out of 12 men here. Article 8 of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12th, that in all capital or criminal prosecution, a man hath the right to demand the cause and nature of his accusation to be confronted with the accusers and witnesses. The accuser is the actual injured party. To call for evidence in his favor and a speedy trial by an impartial jury of 12 men of his vicinage. Pay attention here. Without whose unanimous consent he cannot be found guilty. It is not unanimous not guilty. If there is but one of the 12 that say not guilty, it's an acquittal. See, back in the day, it was actually either guilty or acquittal, not a not guilty. When one stood up and said acquittal, that's it, you're done. Which is why the double jeopardy part comes in. That's what they were doing. Oh, well, we didn't get unanimous, so we're going to try you again. That's why they did the double jeopardy. No, you cannot try him again. You get one chance. And if you do not get unanimous consent from all 12 for finding of guilty, it is, in fact, an acquittal. That's the law, the common law, and the law of the land as it is written right here. That's right. I mean, we can't get any more clear than that. And of course, they took out the 12 men of his vicinage so they can get away with, well, we can do this with 6. No, the common law says 12. Now, here again, this Declaration of Rights is merely declaratory of the common law. This is the common law. Declarations declare, lay down the law. Notice that this is a separate document from the Constitution. Oh. Wow. Yeah. In cases affecting both life and property. If it has anything to do with our life, liberty, property, hey, you got to have a trial by jury. For suspending the legislature of one of the colonies, for interdicting all commerce to the capital of another. They even tried to, in my own case, tell me, oh, well, this isn't about commerce. Traffic isn't commerce. Well, Joseph Story, in his commentaries on the Constitution, specifically relating to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, that commerce undoubtedly is traffic. And the subject matter jurisdiction, is commerce. But that was delegated to Congress. So that has to be in a federal court. Read the Judiciary Act of 1789, and it's civil in nature. Uh-oh. Because that's a maritime jurisdiction. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter and secured by acts of its own legislature, solemnly confirmed by the crown. So even when this stuff was put in writing, and there's charters, ordinances, all this stuff was done in writing, and they still want to subvert it. Are they doing that stuff today? Absolutely. How about this one? For exempting the murderers of colonists from legal trial and, in effect, from punishment. You mean like, oh, well, we did our own internal investigation and we found no fault of the officer. That wasn't murder. Yeah, it is murder. Because you don't lawfully exist, police officers. And it's actually pronounced policy. Oh, that's a good one that I should bring up. Let's just show it on the screen. For those that don't believe me, let's look at some of the original constitutions. And I believe it was in, was it North Carolina or was it South Carolina? that the people of this state ought to have the sole and exclusive right of regulating the internal government and police thereof? No, policy thereof. Not police. That's because, see, it would make any sense to pronounce that as police there, now would it? It's policy, the internal policy thereof. And I'll make it very clear, right straight from American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 2. Oh, it's in the first one right here, right? Oh, I'm in Section 1. No wonder why I didn't see it there. Section 2. A constitution differs, right, from a statute in that a statute ordinarily provides some details of the subject of which it treats, whereas the Constitution treats of broad general principles and builds a substantial foundation and general framework of the law and the government. The Constitution, the framework of the government, containing the general principles upon which the government must function, intended not merely to remedy existing conditions, but to govern future contingencies. It is a compilation of fundamental laws of the jurisdiction and embodies principles upon which the jurisdiction's government was founded. Does that mean the public servants can alter this fundamental law? No, they cannot. That's out of their reach. They're not the sovereign. We are. The people are the sovereign. But what does it say? The Constitution is made for the people and by the people, and is above all an embodiment of the will of the people, deriving its force directly from the people themselves. Statutes, by contrast, are enactments and rules for the government of civil conduct, promulgated by the legislative authority of a state. Oh, well, wait a minute. That just goes right back to exactly what this says. Regulating the internal government and policy thereof. It's policy. Regulations, policy. Anything that the legislature makes is policy. The trickery here is the letter Y. A-E-I-O-U and sometimes Y. Y, when they changed that and allowed Y to be used as a vowel, is trickery. P-O-L-I-C-Y, policy is what we call it now, with a Y. It's still policy with an E. I mean, hooked on phonics here. P-O-L-I-C-E, policy. Right? English language, that's the letter C is C, and the letter E is E. So C, policy. Uh-oh. And so, what is it saying? And again, this is a Declaration of Rights. Then the Constitution, or form of government. See how the Declaration of Rights is separate from the Constitution? It's not one and the same. Declaration is laying down the law. How about that for redress of grievances and for amending and strengthening the laws, elections ought to be often held. That a frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles is absolutely necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty. How about that the people of the state ought not to be taxed or made subject to the payment of any impost or duty without the consent of themselves or their representatives in General Assembly, freely given. But it was originally in the Constitution that there shall be no direct taxes. That no free man ought to be taken, imprisoned, or diseased of his freehold, liberties, or privileges, or outlawed, or exiled, or in any manner destroyed, or deprived of his life, liberty, or property, but by the law of the land. Here's what we're dealing with today. The general warrants whereby an officer or messenger may be commanded to search suspected places without evidence of the fact committed, or to seize any person or persons not named, whose offenses are not particularly described and supported by evidence, are dangerous to liberty and ought not to be granted. That no free man shall be put to answer any criminal charge but by indictment, presentment, or impeachment. We'll all be damned. That's before the Fifth Amendment. This is 1776. Like I said, it's already the common law. That in all criminal prosecutions, every man has the right to be informed of the accusation against him, and to confront the accusers and witnesses with other testimony, and shall not be compelled to give evidence against himself. So imagine that. It's already here, 1776. All right. Back to the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, 1775. These devoted colonies were judged to be in such a state as to present victories without... Oh, wait. Nope. We already went over that one. But why should we enumerate our injuries in detail? By one statute it is declared, the Parliament can, of right, make laws to bind us in all cases whatsoever. Why do you think they separated that? Suits at common law, 7th Amendment, and suits in law, Article 3, Section 2. What is to defend us against so enormous, so unlimited a power? Not a single man of those who assume it is chosen by us, or is subject to our control or influence. Oh, would that be the administrative state under the Administrative Procedures Act of 1946? Oh, you mean like all of these unelected bureaucrats that are making the laws? And they're not even subject to it? Is that what they're talking about? It's the same thing again. Exactly. But on the contrary, they're all of them exempt from the operation of such laws. And an American revenue, if not diverted from the ostensible purposes for which it is raised, would actually lighten their own burdens in proportion as they increase ours. Of course. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. We for 10 years incessantly and ineffectually besieged the throne as supplicants. We reasoned, we remonstrated with Parliament in the most mild and decent language. Now, like I said, that's part of the process. Now, when they're talking about remonstrating against these statutes, when they were making the statutes, they remonstrated against them. Administration sensible that we should regard these oppressive measures as free men ought to do, sent over fleets and armies to enforce them. No standing armies, no armed bodies of men. The indignation of the Americans was roused, it is true. See, even before, we're Americans. Clear back to 1606 with the Virginia first Charter of Virginia of 1606. We're Americans. But it was the indignation of a virtuous, loyal, and affectionate people. A Congress of Delegates from the United Colonies. Now here's the other thing. Many people don't know that there was a confederation before the Confederation. That's right. There was a union. The United Colonies was assembled at Philadelphia on the 5th day of last September. So 1774, in September 1774 is when they started with the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Virginia. We resolved again to offer a humble and dutiful petition to the King, and also addressed our fellow subjects of Great Britain. We have pursued every temperate, every respectful measure. We have even proceeded to break off our commercial intercourse with our fellow subjects as the last peaceable admonition that our attachment to no nation upon earth should supplant our attachment to liberty. This, we flattered ourselves, was the ultimate step to the controversy. But subsequent events have shown how vain was this hope of finding moderation in our enemies. Several threatening expressions against the colonies were inserted in His Majesty's speech. Our petition, though we were told it was a decent one, and that His Majesty had been pleased to receive it graciously, and to promise laying it before his Parliament, was huddled into both houses among a bundle of American papers, and there neglected. Gee, has that ever happened? You're welcome, Slim Frank. Yep, there's an absolute difference between a petition and a remonstrance. The remonstrance is remonstrating against statute being created. Petition is a political lawsuit. That's for the redress of grievances. Okay. The Lords and Commons in their address in the month of February said that a rebellion at the time actually existed within the province of Massachusetts Bay, claiming that we are rebelling, and that those concerned with it had been countenanced and encouraged by unlawful combinations and engagements entered into by His Majesty's subjects in several of the other colonies. You mean where we have the right to peaceably assemble, to consult for our common good comes from? Made it very clear it's not a rebellion for us to peaceably assemble and to consult for our common good. And if we need to take up arms, We have every right to do that. When government becomes despotic, we have every right to take up arms. Absolutely. Every right. And it's not just a right, it is a duty of every able-bodied American. Yeah, it's a duty. Not just a right, but a duty. And therefore they besought His Majesty that he would take the most effectual measures to enforce due obedience to the laws and authority of the supreme legislature. Isn't that what's going on here today? We're seeing it all the time in videos where, step out of the car, I'm demanding ID. For what crime? Well, you didn't have plates on your car, you didn't use a turn signal, or, your registration is expired, or you were speeding. But that's not traffic. We're in the private. We have the right to acquire, possess, and the free use of our private property. You cannot convert that right into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee to it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. And if you read Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, you will find, I'll just pull it up because it's easier to just show it, the truth, right? When we look at the syllabus here, what is this? Oh, 9, what they call merits of a case. A municipal ordinance which, as construed and applied, requires religious colporteurs to pay a license tax as a condition to the pursuit of their activities is invalid under the federal constitution and denial of freedom of speech, press, and religion. The mere fact that the religious literature is sold rather than donated does not transform the activities of the colporteur into a commercial enterprise. Upon the record in these cases, it cannot be said that the Jehovah's Witnesses were engaged in a commercial rather than a religious venture. So there are two merits of this case that reference commerce. And that just because something is sold doesn't mean we're in commerce. That goes back to interdicting all commerce onto the people. No, that's not commerce. And you were told that in 1943. Soon after, the commercial intercourse of whole colonies with foreign countries and with other was cut off by an act of Parliament. By another, several of them were entirely prohibited from the fisheries in the seas near their coasts, on which they always depended for their sustenance, and large reinforcements of ships and troops were immediately sent over to General Gage. Well, imagine that. Who is the aggressor here? It's the same crap over and over again, I'm telling you folks. And it wasn't about tax, the tea tax, right? That's what we're all led to believe today. It was about the tea tax. Clearly, what we're reading here, it's way more than just the tax. Fruitless were all the entreaties, arguments, and eloquence of an illustrious band of the most distinguished peers and commoners who nobly and strenuously asserted the justice of our cause, to stay or even to mitigate the heedless fury with which these accumulated and unexampled outrages were hurried on. I mean, again, the problem here is that they buried that petition. for the redress of grievances. As in, they don't care. They're doing what they want. That's that pernicious project. That's right. So, equally fruitless was the interference of the city of London, of Bristol, and many other respectable towns in our favor. Parliament adopted an insidious maneuver calculated to divide us. Oh, you mean like Democrat and Republican? Like conservative and leftist, or, liberal? How about we have a frequent reoccurrence to some fundamental principles, and we have a virtuous society, and we have a virtuous government? But what was this? City of London and the Vatican? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Parliament adopted an insidious maneuver calculated to divide us, to establish a perpetual auction of taxations where colony should bid against colony. Oh, inciting angst against one another. That's that. To divide them. All of them uninformed what ransom would redeem their lives, and thus to extort from us, at the point of a bayonet, the unknown sums that should be sufficient to gratify, if possible to gratify, ministerial rapacity, with the miserable indulgent left to us of raising, in our own mode, the prescribed tribute. In other words, bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. Well, we say that that's a crime. You got to pay a tax. We're extorting you. Right now, pay it. Or we're going to take your food. We're going to take this. We're going to take that. We're going to take your horses. We'll take your wagons. We'll take your house. We'll burn your house down. What terms more rigid and humiliating could have been dictated by remorseless victors to conquered enemies? In our circumstances, to accept them would be to deserve them. So that's where we're at. Are we going to stand up against this tyranny or not? This despotism? Soon after the intelligence of these proceedings arrived on this continent, General Gage, who in the course of the last year had taken possession of the town of Boston in the province of Massachusetts Bay, and still occupied it a garrison on the 19th day of April, sent out from that place a large detachment of his army, who made an unprovoked assault on the inhabitants of the said province at the town of Lexington. Oh, was that where the shot across the bow was heard? The shot around the world? As appears by the affidavits of great number of persons, some of whom were officers and soldiers of that detachment, murdered 8 of the inhabitants and wounded many others. From thence the troops proceeded in warlike array to the town of Concord, where they set up another party of the inhabitants of the same province, killing several and wounding more, until compelled to retreat by the country, people suddenly assembled to repel this cruel aggression. So again, this was our own military against our own people, which is why the military is not supposed to be deployed against the people. That would be unlawful and unconstitutional. And history shows that you've done it before. But see, they erected a multitude of new offices. EPA, IRS, BAT, the ATF, and police. That's the standing armies, the armed bodies of men. We're not supposed to have them. We're supposed to have a sheriff and his one deputy. That's it. Because we provide for our common defense, not government. We secure our own safety, not government. Right? That's what it says here. That's what we're reading, history of law. The inhabitants of Boston, being confined within that town by the general, their governor, and having, in order to procure their dismission, entered into a treaty with him, it was stipulated that the said inhabitants, having deposited their arms with their own magistrate, should have liberty to depart, taking with them their other effects. They accordingly delivered up their arms to the magistrate, but in open violation of honor, in defiance of the obligation of the treaties, which even savage nations esteem sacred, the governor ordered the arms deposited as aforesaid, that they might be preserved for their owners, to be seized by a body of soldiers, detained the greatest part of the inhabitants in the town, and compelled the few who were permitted to retire to leave their most valuable effects behind. So they tricked them. Give us your arms, lay down arms, and we'll secure them for you until we can get work through this. And then they also killed them. By this perfidy, wives are separated from their husbands, children from their parents, the aged and the sick from their relations and friends, who wish to attend and comfort them, and those who have been used to live in plenty and even elegance are reduced to deplorable distress. This is so sickening, people, to read this and see what they were going through back then, to see that that's what we're going through today. Only on a much grander scale. It's in every frickin' city. And they've done everything that they can over the years, the decades, to strip us of our right to keep and bear arms, because there's too many of us now. We have received certain intelligence that General Carleton, the governor of Canada, is instigating the people of that province and the Indians to fall upon us. So they even got Canada to go against us. And we have but too much reason to apprehend that schemes have been formed to excite domestic violence against us. So they lied. And of course, probably gave them money. Okay? In brief, a part of these colonies now feel, and all of them are sure of feeling, as far as the vengeance of administration can inflict them, the complicated calamities of fire, sword, and famine. We are reduced to the alternative of choosing an unconditional submission to the tyranny of irritated ministers or resistance by force. The latter is our choice. Yeah, because they've been subjected to this crap for 10 years and have tried and tried and tried to reason with them, to remonstrate against all this usurpation of power and subversion of law, and then petitioned and was only met with repeated injuries. Murdered. People were murdered. We have counted the cost of this contest and find nothing so dreadful as voluntary slavery. Honor, justice, and humanity forbid us tamely to surrender that freedom which we received from our gallant ancestors and which our innocent posterity have a right to receive from us. We cannot endure the infamy and guilt of resigning succeeding generations to that wretchedness which inevitably awaits them if we basely entail hereditary bondage upon them. Thank you to all those out there that are long deceased who stood up against this evil, this tyranny. Our cause is just. Our union is perfect. Our internal resources are great, and if necessary, foreign assistance is undoubtedly attainable. We gratefully acknowledge, as signal instances of the divine favor towards us, that His providence would not permit us to be called into this severe controversy until we were grown up to our present strength. We had been previously exercised in warlike operation and possessed of the means of defending ourselves. With hearts fortified with these animating reflections, we most solemnly, before God and the world, declare that, exerting the utmost energy of those powers which our beneficent Creator hath graciously bestowed upon us, the arms we have been compelled by our enemies to assume, we will, in defiance of every hazard, with unabating firmness and perseverance, employ for the preservation of our liberties, being with one mind resolved to die free men rather than to live slaves. Lest this declaration should disquiet the minds of our friends and fellow subjects in any part of the empire, we assure them that we mean not to dissolve that union which has so long and so happily subsisted between us, and which we sincerely wish to see restored. So at this particular point in time, they weren't wanting to separate from Great Britain, right? Because everything was going really good until the king chose to change his councils, and they initiated this pernicious project and started all this excessive power, usurpations of power, subversions of law. No, we were doing too good. That's what happened. We were doing too good. They had to break us back down. Necessity has not yet driven us into that desperate measure, or induced us to excite any other nation to war against them. We have not raised armies with ambitious designs of separating from Great Britain and establishing independent states. We fight not for glory or for conquest. Oh, you mean like Great Britain? We exhibit to mankind the remarkable spectacle of a people attacked by unprovoked armies without any imputation or even suspicion of offense. They boast of their privileges and civilization, and yet proffer no milder conditions than servitude or death. In our own native land, in defense of the freedom that is our birthright, and which we ever enjoyed, till the late violation of it, for the protection of our property acquired solely by the honest industry of our forefathers and ourselves against violence actually offered. We have taken up arms. We shall lay them down when hostilities shall cease on the part of the aggressors, and all danger of their being renewed shall be removed, and not before. With an humble confidence in the mercies of the supreme and impartial judge and ruler of the universe, we most devoutly implore his divine goodness to protect us happily through this great conflict, to dispose our adversaries to reconciliation on reasonable terms, and thereby to relieve the empire from their calamities of civil war. Primarily the work of Thomas Jefferson and John Dickinson. Yup. So now we have a little bit of a background before the Declaration of Independence of what was really going on starting in essentially 1774. But by this declaration, 10 years, 11 years. Now, can we read the Declaration of Independence in a little bit different light? What's this? This is the Lee's Resolution, June 7th, 1776. Proposing in Virginia the Declaration of Independence. Proposing. Resolved that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. That it is expedient forthwith to take the most effectual measures for forming foreign alliances, that a plan of confederation be prepared and transmitted to the respective colonies for their consideration and approbation. Source: documents illustrative of the formation of the Union of the American States. That'll be, yep, Charles C. Tanzel. I actually have that book. So, this is the resolution. Yeah. Not the Declaration of Independence. The resolution. Now, when we read the Declaration of Independence, what does it say? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. These are the causes for the separation. Laying down the law. We hold these truths to be self-evident. This is supposed to be common sense law. Like, do you have to hit your thumb with a hammer to know that it's going to hurt? If you're one of those, get the heck out of here. Because this is for those that have common sense. That all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, meaning you cannot place a lien upon them. And I know there's people, no, that's unalienable. No, the root of that word is lien. And I'm going to show you from etymology, origin of words, what a lien, when we're talking about, right to hold property of another until debt is paid. A band or tie from them, a bond, a bond, a bond, a bond. The word in the Middle English literal sense, a bond. Fetter, also for moral restraint. But there's more. Oh. Oh, what? They changed this since the last time I've been here. It even said that they was to hold rights until the debt was paid. Oh yeah. So this is why it's unalienable. You cannot place a lien upon these rights until the debt is paid. You can't convert us into slaves. Now, what does it say? That among these rights, not all of them, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or property, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, not rulers, not kings, queens, princes, no, among men that are created equal, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. How do we grant powers? By and through the Constitution. We just read that in American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 2, August 2017 update. So that's not that old, right? I'm not going off of old American jurisprudence stuff. This is up-to-date stuff. Okay? So, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Okay, that was already done. That's what we're doing. That's what they did. They've created new constitutions. They created the Articles of Confederation. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. What are we doing here, folks? Are we going to take it? Or are we tired of this and going to stand up? Are we going to come together as the people and peaceably assemble? Are we going to consult for a common good and potentially take up arms? Again, I don't advocate for violence, but when we're met with violence, as we just read in the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, what are we supposed to do? Do we willingly want to sit here and suffer? Or do we want to right ourselves? And we want to abolish all this unlawful crap that's in direct violation of the constitutions, state and federal. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Well, what was going on? He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. So they were making all this law stuff. Now remember, this is under a monarchy, and the king has to give his assent. But with the Ordinance of Virginia and how things were delegated, the powers were basically taken away from the king and from Parliament. And we, the people in America, created the General Assembly. The people, of the people, by the people, for the people. That's when that started. Okay, 1620, 1621. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formable to tyrants only. Do we have the proper representation in Congress? Do we have the proper representation in our state legislatures based on the population? How it's supposed to be? No, we do not. No, we do not. Why? Because they only have enough corrupt individuals to sustain their fraud and their corruption. If we actually had a sufficient amount of proper representation of the people based on the population from a census, it would be extremely difficult. They wouldn't be able to control them all. They already have a hard enough time in some of the states. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusually uncomfortable and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Calling them out, aren't they? He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. Yeah. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected. Oh, you mean like election fraud? Whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining, in the meantime, exposed to all the dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners. Oh, wait. Oh, we had issues back then with foreigners. Refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. But see, you had to be, what? Naturalized. You had to be allowed, selected, granted. You couldn't just come over here. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers, because he was trying to keep them. He wanted control. He didn't like the fact that he had lost all this control over here and everything was going great. Everything was going good. But no, can't have that. We were being successful. We were happy, prosperous. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance, enforcing those bills of attainder in the Roman civil law, extending that admiralty jurisdiction beyond its ancient limits. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. What do we have today? Police. That's the standing army. An armed body of men within our own frickin' cities. There's no declaration of war in our city or our state whereby we would call forth the militia, the military, to defend the people. No. They're attacking the people. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Now, here's the other part of all this. I don't have the pulled up right now. We're running out of time. But the history of the policy officer was actually created by the King of Great Britain in the 1700s. That's what they're talking about. And originally they were to man the ports because he found out that he didn't have enough men to defend the realm at the time. So he erected this new office, a policy officer at the ports to regulate commerce and help with all that. And then he built those forces up as armed bodies of men, and that's what he put on the ships to send over here to attack us. As that's the history of the policy officer. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. And didn't need the consent of our legislature to call forth the militia, the military. And then they were using it against the people. Isn't that what's going on today? Are we all seeing this? Are we this blind? Are we not seeing this stuff? I'm sure a lot of the people here tonight have been subjected to the tyranny in one way or another. If you've ever been pulled over for a traffic ticket, whether it's speeding, failed to use a turn signal, you got a burnout tail light or a brake light's out, you got a busted tail light, your license plate's swinging, you don't have plates, your registration's expired, you don't have a front plate, all this bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. And they erected all these officers out here to harass us and eat out our substance, taxation. No, Doug, police were not slave catchers. The policy officer originated from the king to man the ports to regulate commerce in early 1700. That's what the policy officer was created for. Never was here. We didn't have a policy officer here until the 1850s. That's right. I think it was 1854. What's this? He is combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their pretended acts of legislation. What foreign jurisdiction is that? What law would it be unacknowledged by our law? What's our law? Our law is the common law. So what's a jurisdiction that's foreign to the common law? That's foreign to the Constitution? Oh, that would be that Roman civil law. It's a foreign jurisdiction, just like feudal law. Those are the three bodies of fundamental law that Blackstone enumerates, elucidates in his commentaries. That's right. That's the foreign jurisdiction that's referenced in the Declaration of Independence. The Code, Roman civil law, the Code, United States Code, Code of Federal Regulations, Uniform Code of Military, Uniform Code of Military Justice, the Uniform Commercial Code, Idaho Code, Code. It's all Roman civil law, folks. That's what we're being subjected to today. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. The policy officer. How are they not quartered among us? They're just not in our own homes now. They get their own home. They get paid to be armed bodies of men to extort money from the people, and they can afford their own home, their own cars. The king doesn't have to pay. Well, the king is paying them. That's it. How are they not? We're supposed to have a well-regulated militia, not an armed policy officer. Are they not quartered among us? For protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of the states. Heck, they don't even have trials anymore. They just say, well, we did our own investigation. The fox guard and the hen house. No, the grand jury is supposed to do the investigation. That power belongs to the people. The people are supposed to investigate public servants for corruption in their crimes. We're supposed to do that, not them. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Well, we haven't had that much of an issue. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Uh-oh. For depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury. Yeah. The benefit of a grand jury indictment or presentment. We're being deprived of that benefit. How about the benefit of the trial by jury to declare something unlawful and unconstitutional? Right. We're supposed to do that. We have the right to alter, reform, or abolish anything at any time we deem it necessary. One of those ways that we exercise that power is through the jury. The jury is supposed to be able to judge both the facts and the law. Oh, that's the benefits of a trial by jury. That's how we were supposed to maintain our republic and to curtail the legislature from making statutes, usurpation of power exceeding their authority. It was taken care of by the people who got subjected to it, claimed that it was unlawful and unconstitutional. At trial, the jury made a determination whether or not that was unlawful and unconstitutional, and declared it to be abolished. That's one of the benefits of a trial by jury, not a jury trial. That's Roman civil law mimicking our right to trial by jury. That's, again, the Roman civil law. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. The Roman civil law, bills of attainder and bills of pains and penalties. For spending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. They're not supposed to have power to legislate on common law. We're supposed to have a common law court in every city. Yeah, you heard me right. In every city where we elect our justice of the peace, which is not a member of the bar. The bar didn't exist back then. The Crown Temple Bar did, but not the American Bar Association and not the state bars. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Well, the governors aren't protecting us. The commander-in-chief, the supreme commander-in-chief, president, is not, I would say, previous presidents are not protecting us, have not protected us. They've allowed this crap. Why do you think Trump and Attorney General Barr there in 2018, 19 there, flat out told Congress that the president, as commander-in-chief, is going to start exercising powers that properly belong to the executive branch, and the judicial branch doesn't have a say in it, and Congress can just deal with it. Oh, that's right. Even the Supreme Court ruling recently about the foreigners and aliens and all that stuff and blah, blah. Now, Trump's not going to obey that ruling because the Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction. It's a political argument, not a judicial one. Article 4, Section 4, Luther versus Borden. This is a political argument, not a judicial one. The judicial branch does not have subject matter jurisdiction. Only Congress does. Or the executive, if Congress cannot be convened this is in fact a foreign invasion. This is domestic violence, internal insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the Constitution, and war against the people. Yes, make no mistake, that's what Trump and the military have been working on the world stage. Because if you think this is only happening here in the United States and by and through the United States of America, you're sadly mistaken and grossly misinformed. As we just read through the Declaration of the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, July 6, 1775, London. Oh, why? Why did they point to London then? It's the same shit again, folks. It's the same people. Same place. This is on a world stage. That stuff had to be taken down before we can get to where it's happening right now in the States. Yes, make no mistake, there are arrests that have been happening in the United States of America, in these states, since 2022. And it's going to become exponential here real soon. And I saw the post out there by Mr. Poole saying that there was a mass arrest of senators, representatives, and federal judges nationwide on July 5th, yesterday. So we'll wait to see if that's true. But if it is true, massive arrests were just made yesterday. Lots of indictments and warrants were executed, unsealed and executed yesterday. Okay. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Burned our towns? Where have we heard this before? Aren't we experiencing that? Haven't we been experiencing that? Are we having issues with people burning our towns down? Linked to George Soros allegedly, and oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's the same stuff again today. That's right here in the Declaration of Independence. That was right there in the Declaration of the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms. Munson 58. So this is why the executive branch can declare the second Declaration of Independence. Well, I don't know if it's actually the executive branch that can do anything. It has to be the people. People have all the power. Now, as far as I understand, yes, the Trump can sign off on it. And I'm aware of this alleged second Declaration of Independence, but I made the comment to certain people back then that it wasn't, the language was not proper. They were using words that were incorrect. And it just goes to show how many people have been dumbed down. They don't even know the true meaning of some of the words that they're using, like citizen. Notice some of the words that are used here back then. Inhabitants, people, inhabitants, people, not citizens. Man, not person. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with the circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled to the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. Uh-oh. Back to the same thing, burning down our towns. That's the same stuff, folks. That we're experiencing right now. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. Oh, you mean like local city police? How about this next one? Oh, you're going to love this one. He has excited domestic insurrection among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Oh, but we attacked the Indians. We did this to them. No. The Indians were savages and murdering one another before we even came here, folks. Now, there were some Indian tribes when we first got here that were begging us to help defend them, and we did. But I also want to remind people that there were three kinds of people that came over here. The red coats, the blue coats, and the no coats, the people. They weren't part of the red coats or the blue coats. The right of the people to keep and bear arms, those people. The people. Not the citizens, the people. Citizens are the public servants. Oh, yes. Because whose known rule of warfare is it? A monarchy. To divide and conquer. To invade and conquer. That's their known rule of warfare. A monarchy does that, right? Like we just read before. Oh, they got even the Canadians to go against us. They lied to them. Isn't that what we're talking about? Same thing. In every stage of these, pay attention, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act at which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in our attentions to our British brethren. We have, see, again, clearly there's different types of people here. There's the good, peaceful, Christian, God-loving, fearing people. And then you have the redcoats, the king, the prince, all the people under his direct command. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of their common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce to the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representative of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world, God, for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be, in big, bold, all capital letters, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. You have no authority over us, Great Britain. None. No political connection. No authority. Totally dissolved. Kick rocks. Get out of here. And that, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Who is with me to pledge your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor? If you are not with me, then you are against me. If you are not for virtuous society government that stays within the confines of the powers delegated pursuant to the Constitution, and not usurp their powers and make statutes that are contrary to, oh, they're not even statutes anymore, it's all code. None of it's real statutes, it's all code. You heard me right, because that's how Roman civil law, the code, works. It doesn't do statutes. It's all code. It's time to pick a side. You're either for America or you're against America. And I feel, pity the fool. I pity the fool who goes against America at this particular point in time. Because make no mistake, it is being taken down. The corruption within the states is coming. It's happening. It's coming. But we, the people, have to stand up and take our rightful position, our stations, pursuant to the laws of nature and nature's God. We have the right and the duty to defend against tyranny and despotism. And what I've covered here tonight should expose all of the bullshit that's going on right now, should cause everyone to want to stand up and do something about it, to petition the legislature for the redress of grievances, to file public corruption complaints, because that's what our Supreme Commander-in-Chief has put in order by Executive Order 14288 for us to report the corruption down to a city level to the state attorney general, which the military is behind that, pursuant to the executive order from April 28, 2025. That is the executive order I just recently showed again. Last Monday, I showed it to you. I believe it was even the Monday before that. I've showed it to you recently a couple of times. That is an order to execute the law to eradicate all crime within the states. The military's been deployed. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for us to tell on them. Trust the plan. We're supposed to sit around and wait. No. I have never said anything about sitting around and waiting for them to do something for us to take this down. I have advocated for petitioning the legislature for the redress of grievances since 2017, folks. And those of you that have been following me, and Chris at the time, and John Gentry at the time, we were trying to learn and teach people at the same time about the right of petition. It's time. It's time we petition. It's time we file those public corruption complaints with the state attorney general. Now, I got word from one of my followers, I believe it was Wendy, but I've also heard somewhere else too now, is that there are certain states that are not in compliance with the executive order, and that they have, what'd you say it was, Wendy, 90 days to get in compliance and to set that up? That's right. This stuff must be set up and working functionally so that we have a remedy, because where there is a right, there has to be a remedy. And this is what Trump and the military have put in place for us to utilize. We have to pay attention to what our commander-in-chief is instructing us and ordering us to do. Flailing around, I'm going to take him to federal court and sue him. No, nowhere did our supreme commander-in-chief tell us to do that. We have to pay attention. The whole system is corrupt. The legislative, executive, and judicial. They've altered fundamentally our form of government. Right back to the Declaration of Independence. Right back to the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms. And right now, the military is packing arms. Make no mistake. God bless America. God bless the world, because this is a worldwide takedown. Because this isn't just America that's been subjected to this tyranny, to this despotism. The New World Order, the one world government, has been stopped. We're undoing everything. They've had to undo everything that they put in place. This took decades, hundreds of years to get where we're at. They keep trying. We are long overdue for a revolutionary war. And that's what World War III is. This is a worldwide revolutionary war. Executive Order 13818, blocking the property of those involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption worldwide. December 20th, 2017. That's when this kicked off. Officially. Okay? So, if you enjoyed tonight's show, feel free to make some donations over here and pledge your fortunes to help support me to keep going so I can still do all this. I mean, as it is, I'm already having to go back to work doing some mechanic work on the side to survive. We need funding. Big time. Even for some of the things we've been talking about with Tony Pellegrino and Lee Arthur Rice. Okay? We need funding. Okay? So links are down in the description. Rumble should be on X. Shout out to those out on X that are watching. I didn't see too many X comments tonight, but over here on Telegram, KirksLawCorner.com, Patreon, You can look on any of the live videos when I share the Rumble on Telegram, the links to make donations to the buy me a coffee link there. You can make donations through there. You can become a member over on my Patreon. Tier 1, Tier 2, I set those up for $5, $10 a month. Tier 3 gets you into the Wednesday night workshop. So if you're with me, get over there in the Wednesday night workshop. That's where we're discussing this in the private. We're peaceably assembling, and we're discussing this, how to do this. And I'm going to start going through, I'm going to lay this out again in the Wednesday night workshop, how to fill these complaints out. We need to start doing it. We need to start reporting. The military's sitting there chomping at the bit, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for us to file these public corruption complaints. Whether you're state or not, I can still show you how to fill out a complaint and send it to the Attorney General. Not only that, we can still do the A091 criminal complaint form and send that to the federal district where the crime happened, you know, in that district. Deputy Attorney General. Tier 4 is one-on-one time. If you want one-on-one time with me for specific education on your case, what have you, just want to chit-chat. I mean, I've actually had a couple people do that one. Oh, I just wanted to meet with you and talk with you, and well, I'm honored and blessed. Thank you. But we need people to pledge their fortunes here. And I know there's some of you out there that are pretty well off and can afford it. For those of us that are living in poverty over here, we need your support. But we also need people to pledge their lives and your honor. Sacred honor, as God intended us to defend against this tyranny. We have to take actions. And to quote Blackstone in his commentaries on the laws of England regarding those laws of nature, for vindication of those rights, we're to petition in the most humblest terms. And if they're not resolved, right, they're not dealt with, then we can take up arms, and only then. Even though our commander-in-chief says, yeah, we're taking up arms. I'm deploying the military to the states because they're so freaking corrupt. The courts are all corrupt. You can't get justice in these courts these days. We all know that are here tonight. Guarantee you. There ain't a one of you that probably haven't experienced some form of corruption after reading what we just covered tonight. You paying taxes of any kind, direct taxes on you? Yeah, you're being subjected to tyranny. And if you like to mail through the snail mail, cash, wrapped in aluminum foil, gold or silver coinage, in the mail, blah, 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 blah. Address is over there on kirkslawcorner.com. Okay? Other than that, like, follow, share on all of the platforms. Share them all, everywhere. X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. All right? God bless. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Much love. Thank you all for being here.